Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Time is the most precious resource we all have, and the fact that you're here and curious to learn more about us and the rest of DevRev means a lot. So, I was thinking about what should I talk about to you. For those of you who don't know me, I was a developer for the first 10 years of my life after I dropped out of my PhD program at UT Austin. And then, with a couple of my fellow mates, I started this company called Nutanix. Um, I was a CEO of that company for about 11 and a half years. Took it public along the way in 2016. And we ended up hiring, more than 6,000 people. And in the course of those 7, 8 years of selling the product, we sold almost $6+ billion worth of software. And there's some great learnings, and I think there was a wealth of knowledge about product and customer love and what developers really wanted to do. And At the same time, learning about distribution and business models and such. So I thought I was thinking a lot about all the wealth of knowledge that I'd come to accumulate, and how I wanted to use it in my next company, where we really made it such that my experiences could come together in codified in software. I know it's a very geeky way of saying it, but I wanted to codify my experiences into a software, which hopefully will be meaningful as you go think about building businesses and getting curious. So I was thinking of the book The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. And also, I talked about the invisible hand. And I figured, this could be a good parallel to draw about the wealth of developers and the invisible hand, and the role that the invisible hand could play in the future of developers in the future. When 30 years ago, 1990s was the decade of the developer as software took over, as the internet took center stage. Everything was beginning to be streamed, e commerce took off. The 2000s was the decade of the developer with open source and the beginning of the mobile revolution. The 2010s were the decade of the developer with everything moving to the cloud. And finally, the 2020s, we talk a lot about decentralized everything, and we'll see how pretty much most things that were paper will get digitized, and not just digitized in the way things were being done 25 years ago, but everything being in the cloud. So every decade has been a decade of the developer. And they've had so much of wealth with skills, with knowledge, the brain trust around them, the impact that they've come to have. And yet, the irony is that not all of them have that kind of a wealth when it comes to being called wealthy. So I asked this question: why don't we have a ton of $100+ million developers, except in the world of crypto, which you can call an exception, but I don't think it is. There is a correlation between the crypto developers and the fact that they've come to generate so much wealth so quickly. Yet there are quite a few developers who have made $10+ million, and they're the ones who had the staying power to build a business. They had the staying power to brute force their way into disrupting incumbents and to be the early employees of a company where they were very curious about the market, the users, the customers. So we'll talk about this special class that has generated wealth for themselves and why. Now, before we answer some of these questions, you realize how much impact all of you have had in the world of B2C already in the last 10, 15, 20 years. everything that happened retail, commerce, mobile, music, movies, pretty much every space in the world of B2C was all code. And the great part about this coming decade is that everything in the world of B2B will be code. It's the developer, it's you, it's your product, the website will drive everything in business internet this coming decade. And we know how your code drove all of sales in e-commerce the last couple of decades. And that's what's going to happen in B2B as well. A lot of business software sales go to market will be done through the product, through the website, through the code. Support as well. In the last 10 years at least, there's so much support that has happened with code in B2C, and we're going to see a lot of that with machine learning and AI come into business software support as well. And growth just as much. There's armies of growth engineers and marketing teams in B2B companies now. As we speak of product qualified leads and freemium models and nudge theories and everything that really happened in the world of B2C coming into B2B. And that is a true product led era where everything is in product, and not just training and enablement, but promotions and placement, and obviously the economics and commerce, all that stuff is in the product. Even inside sales, and forget about field sales, even inside sales is a luxury if this were to become right. Everything will be digital like it was in B2C. It will be digital in the world of B2B as well. Now, the true purpose of any company is the customer. And in retail and B2C, we understood this really well. And all that purpose was realized through code in consumer internet. And we'll see how a lot of those values, the ethos, will actually need to transform in the B2B world as well. Yet, if you think about it, the paradox is that while the developer, their product, their code, the website will need to drive a lot of sales and support and growth, what's not left to them is the thinking of the markets, the customer, the business, the users. That is done by managers, everybody around them, from project and release managers who prioritize to sales managers to support managers and escalation people and alliance managers. Probably the only managers that they can relate with is the dev manager and the product manager. The real makers in this are the ones who are having to think about what about the market, what about the users, and the developer is not in this equation. And they often think about this, that the manager conversations are in boards and roadmaps and sprints. It's happening there that I need to attend meetings for. But the customer conversations are here. And these are with events and incidents and tickets and issues. So there's this paradox, this dichotomy that really needs to be resolved. We think that we have created this myriad of tools to answer simple questions, although when you double click, they are profound questions about the who, the what, and the why. Eventually, it's all about the product and the customer and the users. But there's tons of these tools that we've come to buy and procure, and the software industry is actually built. Not all of them are accessible to everybody because of licensing and pricing and the fact that it becomes too expensive. So it's only in the hands of product managers or sales managers or support people, as opposed to, why don't we just democratize a lot of this and bring it all into a canonical taxonomy of the product and the features, the capabilities, the APIs, the microservices. Just bring it all together, because you can basically take an entire business and center it around a product and its users and customers. It's not that hard if you were to really take an empty canvas and say every business can be centered around product thinking, product conversations, user thinking, user conversations. That's the missing piece. So, our opportunity, and this is again based on everything that I saw this last decade with the company that we all built, is developers loved speaking to end users, even in on calls. It was not beneath them to be in these on calls. We celebrated on calls. We brought them together on Slack with customers, and you don't get net promoter scores just by getting McKinsey to come and talk about NPS. It happens because the culture is developer customer relationship. There's real time conversations that are happening, and it includes support engineers and SREs as well. But the fact that it's in real time, the fact that the end users' problems and data and log files and stack traces are being exchanged in real time with developers is what creates the magic of net promoter score. And we think that that's the piece that needs to be redefined, because there's too many tools out there, and they don't provide a holistic, cohesive view of the product and the customer to developers and product managers. So we are really envisioning a world where developers, product managers, makers at large can basically be at a place where they feel proud that their users are there. I would love for developers to say, look, my users are here when I need them. Not that, when I'm in deep work, I'm, really having to interrupt my deep work with conversations, but whenever I need them for my data, for my reproducing a problem or whatever, they're right there. I can name them if I had to. My SREs are here. It's not like we have two different sets of tools and we need to build all this back and forth of information, hot potatoes between tickets and issues and so on. It's the same place. Where I hang out is where the DevOps people hang out, where the SREs hang out, and my data is here. So if I need to really figure out where my log files, my stack traces, my click streams are, they're all at one place. And it's easy for me to go debug and reproduce problems because my data is right at this place as well. And then finally, my insights are here. The user analytics, the product analytics, they're all available to everybody, not just to just one class of users, but to everybody, because that's the only way we reduce politics and conflicts when it comes to prioritization and attribution and all sorts of future planning as well. It's all based on customer insights and product insights. So they must be available to anybody and everybody in a product organization. And that, we think, is what forms the trifecta of this dev CRM. It's the product, and of course, you need to define what the elements of the product are. It's the APIs, the capabilities, the features, and you got to learn about that through code, from just by inspecting code and deployments, really bringing it all together into the dashboards and the systems of record. And It's also the place where identity is front and center, not just about developers, but also about customers. And the fact that customers, support staff, and developers are all able to talk to each other. There's real time connections and real time insights about identities as well. And finally, the fact that work is not just internal, work involves customers, but work is also social. It's not like we have two different places. One is, oh, this is the place where we do real time communication, and this is a place where we come and dump all the conclusions because it's boring and state. Work is engaging, work has a ton of information, work has history, but also it's the same place where we keep log files and stack traces, the place we actually have real time conversations and emojis and high fives and all those places, all those things are happening in one place. So it's the product, it's the identity, it's the work that we feel can come together to form the developer customer relationship. So I want to come back to the question that I asked early on. So, what's special about those folks who don't just have wealth, but are also wealthy? And the answer that at least I was able to give myself, and hopefully you'll relate to this too, is that these are the developers who built businesses, either because they were early or because when they joined, they were interested, they were curious about the employer's business, the customers, the users. They had the staying power to go build these businesses, as opposed to just job hopping every year or two because you were really in need for search for something that you're just not getting. You're not attached enough to the market, to the users, to the customers. These developers were curious about the invisible hand of the customer, the markets. And yeah, crypto is not special. These developers, they have immense respect for transactions, for markets, for business, for commerce. They really respect the invisible hand of the market. So it's not just happenstance. The reason why many of these crypto folks have made a ton of money is because they really understand the invisible hand of the market. And that's basically our proposition. We believe that if you were to bring the invisible hand of the customer, the market, the user, to all the makers, to the developers, to the product managers, to the dev managers, we can create an extremely cohesive culture. We can create developers who are not just have a wealth of knowledge and skills and the brain trust around them, but they can also go build massively large businesses and create generational wealth for themselves and the people around them. So to know a little bit more, let's take a look at DevRev's product and how we're trying to bring a lot of our experiences about the customer, the market, the users together for everybody.
We are living in a product led era where devs, issues, features, tickets, and users need to come together, seamlessly connecting developers to customers. Imagine connecting your front office and product teams to your end users on one platform. The voice of the customer now speaks directly to the priority of the developer. DevRev deeply integrates and analyzes every signal. By connecting your favorite monitoring tools to your product features, now you can fix issues before your customers ever report them. Our social first experience makes your system of record a system of collaboration. When every message is meant for you, rest assured you will never miss a thread. We designed DevRev for the maker. AI-assisted workflows automate the mundane and make processes intuitive, allowing you to focus on what matters most. We also form the link between your product features and users, so you always understand the impact of your work and never lose sight of your customer. In this era of all things code, we believe software can personalize the customer relationship. DevRev's APIs and SDKs are designed to nurture and support your users from inside the application experience. DevRev, bringing dev and rev together.
And if that has whetted your appetite, would love for you to sign up for a trial. The URL is right here. It's dvrv.ai/invisible hand. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I hope we've created some curiosity about what the invisible hand could be for you in this future decade of product led growth. We believe that you and you alone can drive a ton of value and create a ton of value for not just yourself, but the people around you, and the products that you're building can be 10x more relevant. And the people around you will be a whole lot friendlier if all of you agreed and really look forward to the purpose that you're building towards, which is the customer, the user, the markets. Thank you.